Conceive, believe, achieve.
This is former UFC middleweight champion of the world, Michael Bisping.
Paddy the Baddy here. You're listening to Combat Sports UK.
And you're watching Combat Sports UK.
Hello and welcome back to the Combat Sports UK podcast. I am delighted today to be joined by Mr. Dan Evans, as always. How are you, Dan? You keeping well, mate?
I'm great, thank you very much. Yourself, Brandon?
Yes, not too bad, not too bad. Looking forward to getting stuck in. We've got a bit of a review, a preview, and a bit of gossip to discuss here today. So we're going to go over UFC Edmonton. John, of course, he was at it, Canadian. He was at the card. He said he enjoyed it very much. He can't join us today, unfortunately, but we're going to touch on that card. We're going to touch on Prates against Magney at the weekend, and then we're going to discuss the rumours that's going around about the welterweight division. Well, it's not rumours at this stage. We know Bilal Muhammad is not fighting. The rumours are who is fighting, Shavkat. So we'll touch on that as well. Kick us off with UFC Edmonton at the weekend. This was the third longest event in UFC history. So I was going to say to John, he definitely got his money's worth in terms of watching fights. Well, you could say that, but the lack of knockouts is why it was the third longest. So wasn't the best card, wasn't the worst. The main event was pretty good. The co-main event wasn't bad either. Moreno and Albazi. This was a must-win for Moreno. I made a video before it talking about how if he lost this, he was going to go 0-3, which really would have ruled him out of contendership and the title picture. We've seen Moreno win that space for so long in the flyweight division. What a performance he put on against Albazi. We kind of picked Albazi to do really well in the flyweight division, and I still think he will. But this was a very difficult fight to come back to. They take two years and a bit off. He had neck surgery. They come back to someone like Brandon Moreno. It was going to be a difficult task for him. It looked like it kind of took him he could have had a few rounds to get warmed up. You could tell he was someone that had a bit of ring rust, and I think it was the perfect example of ring rust. Would you agree with that, Dan?
Yeah, definitely. I think for Albazi, like I said, this was going to be his toughest test to date. And for your toughest test, you don't want to be coming off a long layoff. So I think someone like Moreno was almost sort of a nightmare return for Albazi. Like I said, they were scheduled earlier in the year, February time, got pushed back. Like Moreno then took on Royval, lost a narrow split decision. So Moreno, although he's been, like I said, lost his last two, he's been active. And that activity really did show. And I think the levels were shown by Brandon Moreno. It was a shutout performance by him. I scored it 5-0. I had all 5 rounds for Brandon Moreno. I think he just looked perfect. I think it was an excellent performance by him. Back to the levels where, he's competing bang on with Davison Figueiredo back a couple of years ago. So I think when he's at that level, there's not many that can compete with him other than, like I said, Pantoja and obviously Figueiredo those years previous. So I think for Albazi, it was a tough test for him. Like I said, I've seen he seems to be taking the loss well. So that's the main thing you can sort of hope for when you do take sort of, it was a bit of a battering for him. And I think, like I said, for Albazi, just going back to the drawing board, like I said, you've taken some time off, just get active again. If he comes back first quarter of 2025, definitely look at one of those 5 to sort of 7 contenders. Manel Cap, I think, is believed to be rebooked. He's definitely an opportunity for Amir Albazi. So I think it's definitely it's not terrible for Albazi. Look, you lost Brandon Moreno. Is a former champion and someone who I believe could potentially hold the belt again. But he does need to beat another contender before he has a shot at either Asakura or Pantoja, which will obviously be decided in December.
He does. It was a very vintage Brandon Moreno performance, as you say. It was like them fights that we seen with Figueiredo just a few years ago, ripping to the body, ripping to the head kicks, good defensive grappling. I think I was surprised at how little Albazi tried to use his grappling. He was trying to get in the range with Moreno. Moreno's distant management is out of this world, especially at flyweight. He's so quick in and out. Albazi just couldn't get in close enough to land any shots. So not only that, it was as if he couldn't get close enough to land any takedowns too. The couple of times we did see him try and land the takedown, Moreno, he done well with it. Were you kind of surprised at how little grappling Albazi did do?
Yeah, I think it was again for Albazi. That would be in the game plan going in. Get to Moreno, close him down, because that's striking on display for Moreno. When he gets it going, it's unbelievable. Like I said, it's that Mexican striking. It's unbelievable boxing, ripping to the body. It's beautiful to watch. And if you're Amir Albazi, that's the last thing you want to be seeing. So get close to him, and you just couldn't get anywhere near him. I think takedowns, grappling was definitely the game plan. He just couldn't execute it, and I think it was just because of Brandon Moreno showing those levels.
He definitely did show those levels. For Brandon Moreno, he's kind of fought nearly everyone in the flyweight division, apart from Kai Asakura, I suppose, up there when I'm talking about contenders. What do you think's next? Maybe a trilogy with Roy Val, they're 1-on-1. That seems like a fight that makes a lot of sense. Roy Val obviously coming off that great win against Tai Tassaturo. So what do you think?
Yeah, I think with Moreno, I think that level of performance was definitely something that it's that standout performance, that statement performance. If he hadn't had those previous losses to Pantoja, then I think he would possibly jump above Roy Val. Obviously, Roy Val beat him. I personally, back in earlier this year, I thought Moreno had actually edged the fight with Roy Val. It was a very close decision. So I definitely wouldn't mind running that back. I think a trilogy fight there, again, start of the year next year, and that will set up a flyweight title shot for the new or Pantoja for sort of your summertime next year. Pantoja does occasionally fight. He's one of the sort of lesser active champions. He doesn't have that Pereira schedule when he's 3 times in 7 months sort of thing. So I'd like to see a bit more activity from Pantoja, but I think that comes with age. Like I said, I mentioned in previous podcasts, I don't think Pantoja is going to stick around too much longer at flyweight. I think he could be looking at moving up to 135 some point in 2025. So whatever the result is in December, I think Brandon Moreno is well positioned for a title shot if he does get that trilogy with Royval and get a victory there. The man that's missing is Mohamed Mokaev. If he was still around, he would hear a fresh face in contention. But no, unfortunately, he's brave sometime before the end of the year. Hopefully, we can see him back in the UFC.
Coming back.
2025.
He's coming back, I hear.
Well, I hope he's coming back sooner rather than later, because we want that belt back in the UK.
I'm not sure if anyone within the UFC said anything officially, but I seen a while lot of stuff last week about him doing 2 or 3 fights on Brave and then come back to the UFC. I'm not sure if it was Dana that said it, or I'm not sure where that came from, but it seems like it will happen because, let's face it, Mohamed Mokaev, he's young. He was a bit stupid. Like I was at the press conference whenever he went on stage and went straight for Manel Cap. Ridiculous stuff. That's like fighting with an employee in front of your boss and expecting not to get sacked for it. Of course, you're going to get sacked for it. It was a silly thing to do, but you can tell he's learned from it. It's not as if he's went away and he's now mocking the UFC and he's not slabbering about the UFC. He's made it very, very clear. He loves the UFC. He loved his time there and he wants to come back. But I picked in my predictions at the start of the year for my champs at the end of 2024, Mohamed Mokaev was one of them. So obviously we won't see him doing that, but I really do think that he can go on and claim that title at some point. It was just a bit of a shame because the whole thing about him was he was going to become the youngest UFC champion. He was going to beat John Jones' record, and it just never happened. I think injuries and obviously the matchmakers, they're coming out and saying now that it was difficult to match him and things like this. But I think we will see Mohamed Mokaev back in the UFC.
Yeah, definitely. I think I agree with you. Like I said, I think the problem for Mohamed Mokaev, his debut was one of the best debuts you're going to see in the UFC. Like that Cody Durden flying knee into a choke. It was unbelievable. All within 60 seconds. It was unbelievable.
Set the bar too high, didn't it?
It was, and everyone thought, oh my god, this is the next superstar. And then it was, grappling heavily, and then that Manel Cap performance was just, like I say, comical at times. It's one of those things. And all the shenanigans out the octagon, you thought, right, it was just, like you said, it was fighting with an employee, not expecting to get sacked. It was going to happen. And I think I do believe what you're saying. He has toned it down and he's not mocking the UFC or anything like that. He does want to come back. And I think Dana was saying he personally hasn't had a problem with Mokaev. I think it's been the matchmakers, like you were alluding to. So if he let's just build those bridges back, bring him back in, and another UK belt, hopefully, before the end of 2025. But I won't be making that prediction until he's back in the UFC.
Fingers crossed. Because at Brave, like there's not too many fights for him. I think Gerard Burns, a guy from Belfast, actually trains out of FAI. I think he may get the first shot at him in Brave, but outside of that, there's no top level fights for him there. So I would like to see him back. In terms of the main event, then obviously it's all lying on that. or not the main event, the co-main event, isn't it? Of 310, or no, 310.
310, yeah.
Kaya Sakura and Pantoja. I think for the division, it would be much, much better for Kaya Sakura to win, because everyone's had a shot at Pantoja at this stage, and it's just it's a tale of how dominant he is. So if Kaya Sakura was to win, the amount of options of fights that opens up, Moreno and Roy Val, and even Kai Kara France to a certain extent, these guys will be wanting Kaya Sakura to win that fight.
Oh, definitely. 100%, because like I said, it breathes that new light into the division. It was a whole thing that happened with Demetrius Johnson. When you get that one dominant champion, like Pantoja, yeah, to the matchmakers, to Dana White, he's more appealing than Demetrius Johnson because he was just so dominant back then, DJ was. Now, I think for Pantoja, again, he's so good. It's just getting to that level. He's beaten everyone he's been put in front of him. And I think Kaya Sakura, if he is to win, it's not I don't think it's going to be a huge upset if he does win. I personally, going into it, we're about a month or so out, I'm probably going to be leaning towards Pantoja purely on experience. Like I said, I've seen him get it done so many times. I've seen him go to the well too many times. He's got that heart, he's got that fight, and I would be probably picking Pantoja in a month or so. But yeah, if Asakura snatches that belt, the division's alive again. And like you said, you've got plenty of runners and riders. That's the thing with flyweight. If you are missing that rising star that you could chuck in against Pantoja, you had that with Steve Erceg. He took that shot. Now he's on the back of a loss to Kai Kara France. So you've got the same names all in that top 4 bracket, all in those Champions League places. Kai Kara France, Royval, Moreno. They're all sat there waiting. If Asakura takes that belt, it's going to be one of those 3 right in for a title shot if they don't give Pantoja an immediate rematch.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting thing. Excuse me. I do think if Pantoja was to lose his belt, as you've said many times before, I do think he would move up. As he's getting older, I think he's 34 now, is it? That curse will kick in at some stage as well, the curse where you're over 35. He's got 1 fight left before that curse kicks in. So
exactly,
whether he wins this one or not, I don't think he's won this next one, because he will be over the age of 35. And as the curse states, there's only been 2 people to do it. Was it Tyrone Woodley, or was it Tyrone Woodley done it twice?
I think it was Woodley twice, but yeah, that 35 curse is well and truly still kicking. So I think if I was Pantoja, I'd be on my way out, definitely.
So we'll move on then to the co-main event, which was Rose Namajunas taking on Erin Blanchfield. This was a pretty decent fight. The first 2 rounds, it really surprised me. Erin Blanchfield was really, really slow at starting. Rose looked good distance management. Round 2, she got a lovely, lovely takedown in against the fence. Of course, Erin Blanchfield trying to use her grappling, which is unbelievably dominant. We've seen it so many times. Just always go back to that Molly McCann victory. How dominant she was on the ground there. So this was what Rose had to look out for. Round 2, she gets backed up against the cage. It looks like Erin Blanchfield's doing her thing, and Rose lands a lovely judo throw, ends up on top. And I was thinking, this is going to be an upset here. Of course, it was 5 rounds in the championship rounds, which did surprise me as well. Erin Blanchfield comes into it. She won round 3, 4, and 5. Round 4 was the swing round. I think you maybe could make an argument for Rose, but I did give it to Erin Blanchfield. I was happy enough with the scoring of this fight.
Yeah, I think it's again, I think it was quite an easy fight to score. I think everyone's got the same scorecards. First 2 rounds, Rose Namajunas. Last 3, Blanchfield, and round 4 is just your swing round. So 3 and 5, everyone's agreeing on Blanchfield. It's that 4th round where, there's the argument for Rose. Like you said, it was a very close round, a tight round. It can go either way. I don't have an issue with the decision. If it was a split for Rose or either way, again, it wasn't a case of a robbery or anything like that. I did personally, like yourself, score it for Blanchfield. So I had it first 2 rounds for Rose, last 3 for Blanchfield, which, surprised me. Like I said, after those first 2 rounds, you were thinking, right, Blanchfield, she needs to pull something out the bag here, like a submission or snatch something. But yeah, she progressed very well into those later rounds, which is, surprising to see. And that's what you want to see from a contender. You want to see that 4th and 5th round, you can go there and you can get through that fight. So I think for Blanchfield, it's a great win for her. For Rose, I'm not sure where she goes next from here.
It's an awkward one for Rose, isn't it? Because obviously her whole thing was to try and become a double champ at two different weight classes and moving up the weight. She hasn't looked great. She did do better than what I thought she would have against Erin Blanchfield. I am very high on Erin Blanchfield. I know she got beat. Who was it? Was it Tatiana Suarez beat her? No,
I think, was it Furo?
Furo. It was. I think so. Yeah. So I was high on her, and then obviously she got beat in that fight. But I did think Erin Blanchfield was going to go on and be a champ. But she is a rising star. She is very, very, very good. Fights at a very high level. So the fact that Rose won them first 2 rounds so comfortably, it actually did surprise me. I don't know. It's hard to see what's left for her, isn't it?
Yeah, I think this day and age, like I said, that move up, I think it came too late. Like I said, she could have probably moved up a lot earlier in her career. But yeah, for now, like I said, she's lost to Blanchfield now, and she's lost to Furo. Those are the 2 number 1 contenders for Shevchenko. I believe it'd probably be Manon Finau next for Shevchenko. And in there's possibly even a Zhang Weili champ status fight that could be there. So that's Furo, Blanchfield, and possibly Zhang Weili, all now ahead of Rose Namajunas at 125 pounds. So I think, yeah, for Rose now, you're looking at legacy fights, but again, in the women's divisions, how many of those are there? Does she want to go back in with Jessica Andrade for, how many times has that happened now? It's not something you want to see. I don't think she wants to do what Andrade herself is doing, where Andrade, week 1, she's at 115, week 2, she's at 135, week 3, she's at 125. You don't want to be in that state where you're just taking fights for the sake of taking them. She's been a champion previously twice already. I think she's probably made enough money in this sport, like I said. But again, I don't see what's next for Rose Namajunas. It's going to be some sort of legacy fight, whether we bring Joanna Jędrzejczyk back for a BMF, some sort of women's BMF thing. That's the only potential fight I see for her. But for Rose, if she sticks around, she's going to be fighting up and coming contenders, and that's not a space she wants to be in.
It's not, and it's how you can ruin a legacy very, very quickly, isn't it? Because she has got a legacy. What Rose Namajunas has done was unbelievable, and her name is written in the history books. And I think she does need to be careful that she doesn't kind of tarnish that. But we've seen her take time away from the sport before. It's not one of these situations where I don't think she really craves these big fights and really craves fighting. So it wouldn't surprise me if she maybe announces one more fight, as you say, maybe a legacy match or a legacy fight. They finish off her career and she calls it a day. In terms of Erin Blanchfield, then, any fights you're throwing out there? I think Alexa Grasso would be a good one. As you say, as Manon Finau is going to go on, probably fight Shevchenko. I think she's the one that deserves it most.
Yeah, definitely. I think Alexa Grasso is I think it's the obvious next matchup for Erin Blanchfield. I don't know if she called for it after the fight at all, but it's definitely the one I think the matchmakers will go to.
I think she did call for it because I was thinking it was a good call out.
Yeah, so I think Furo definitely next because she's beaten Blanchfield. So wherever that fight takes place, whether it's early next year, some point next year, Shevchenko I think will be more active than she has been. But yeah, no, I think Furo's next against Shevchenko, and for Blanchfield, that leaves Alexa Grasso, former champion, get a win over there, and then you're next in line, definitely.
She is. That would be a pretty interesting fight as well, Blanchfield against Grasso. Of course, you've got Grasso's boxing against Blanchfield's dominant wrestling. It would be a very interesting one. And they're probably two of the most exciting female fighters out there as well. They do bring a kind of high pressure. They're not ones they stand and be a bit lackadaisical the way some other of the women fighters can be.
No, exactly.
The only other kind of thing we wanted to mention on this card was, of course, Welshman Jack Shore. Bad night at the office for him. Of course, with all the funny stuff that went on last time out with his shin bone, and they actually started well in that fight. This time, I was like, I really wanted him to win, but it just wasn't happening for him, was it?
No, it's one of those. I thought the first round wasn't awful. Like I said, I personally scored it to Jack, but I think I might be my Welsh tinted glasses. But like I said, I think he was doing well in the first round, but you could easily have led it towards Zalal. He didn't hurt Zalal or anything like that. And for someone like Zalal, who's on this form now, you've got to put him off. You've got to get to him early and make him think this isn't going to go how all his fights have gone recently. And I think that knee, it's one of those knees. You zig when you zag. You duck down onto that knee. That's going to knock anyone out. And it didn't knock Jack Shaw out, though. Testament to his chin. He just dazed him. And like I said, that in that state, I think as soon as that arm triangle goes in, there's not much Jack Shaw can do from it. Like I said, I think if he's fully conscious, then I think he fights out of it. Like I said, his grappling is unbelievable. It's some of the best grappling you'll see in the UK. So I think for Jack Shaw, again, it's a bump in the road. Now, unfortunately, there's been a couple of bumps in the road in these more recent fights. Now, some of those, that Brito one, who gets an open wound on their shin that gets stopped by a doctor? No one.
Especially when the doctor's poking his finger in it as well.
So I think every loss of Jack Shaw's is very much there's something again, like it's not an excuse, but there's like a star next to it, like an asterisk saying, "No,
he's not been dominated."
No, it's like I said, it's Zalal caught with a knee, Brito open wound on the shin. The Simone one, you could say he was cooked at bantamweight, couldn't make the weight anymore. But the issue is he's not losing these decisions. He is getting finished, and now that's something you've got to put a stop to, because that will, unfortunately, that will get you cut quite quickly. Now, I think Jack Shaw, I believe he's 17-3. He's not someone the UFC want to be cutting. Whether he wants to possibly drop down to a Cage Warriors level again, and then come back in with some new form, that's a possibility for him. But at his age now, just shy of 30, I think Jack Shaw needs to make a big decision. I think that big decision needs to be remaining within the UFC. I don't want to see him jump down, possibly like Mason Jones has done, where he came into the UFC a little bit early, gone back to Cage Warriors now, and he could then soon be back in the UFC. I think for Jack Shaw, take that time. He needs to get back out as soon as possible and get a win under his belt. As soon as that win comes, I can see another surging rise up to the featherweight rankings, but he needs to get a win on his resume quickly.
He does. I think looking at cards for him, maybe back in front of the UK fans in March, it's going to be a fight night. You know, he could sit on a fight night main card, no problem, in the UK. I'm sure the Walsh Battalion, including yourself, will be over to see him if that does happen.
Oh, definitely. Like I said, we've matched up British featherweights before. Nathaniel Wood against Lerone Murphy, obviously it never materialised. Nathaniel Wood is an option now for Jack Shaw. Like I said, that's definitely something that you could see easily sat on a main card, especially with a fight night. But I just want to touch on Zalal. I think he was unbelievable. I think he's one of the most informed featherweights in the division now. And I think he's definitely on the cusp of that ranking spot. So I think for Zalal, he's got to be, again, it's form. Get out there as soon as possible. Like I said, you're on excellent form right now. Keep that momentum going. And he can really make a surge in these rankings. Exactly. Like I said, if I was Yusuf Zalal, any big featherweight fights coming up, I'm keeping ready, stepping in. Look, Dan Igue's done it on 3 hours notice, and look at the stardom he's under. You're Yusuf Zalal, just stay ready, mate, and you can go in. Like I said, I'll go in on this. You know, is it 3 submissions in a row now for Yusuf Zalal?
4 in a row. He's got 6 wins in a row. So he had an arm triangle, 2 rear naked chokes, and an arm triangle, all in the first and second rounds. I think now for him, it's just stepping up to that next level, isn't it? It's just,
exactly.
You know, you beat Jack Shaw. That's the biggest name on his record by far. Now, let's step up to the next level and see what he can do. But he's won 6 in a row, so he can keep going, and I can see him creeping into them rankings, no problem, sometime soon.
100%. Like I said, and the edge of that featherweight rankings, you're looking at names like Nate Landwehr, you're looking at names like David Onama, Alex Caceres. It's all big names there. And like I said, if you can get and stake one of them, you're in the rankings. And then, like I said, 2-3 wins, you're up there then. So I think this is get out there, get another win, you're up in the rankings.
And Jack Shaw versus Nathaniel Wood, UFC fight night. I was going to say maybe they'll probably go back to London in March, I would say. But that is a fight I would love to see.
Yeah, I think March probably a fight night in London. But yeah, Paddy Pimblett, Renato Moicano main event.
Yes, what a fight that'll be. What a fight that'll be. Right, moving on. Apex this weekend. we were just saying off camera, this card is fairly a bit of a shit show, hasn't it? With Cody Garbrandt pulling out, and
Yeah.
but we have got a good main event. I am really looking forward to seeing Carlos Prates back in there. Obviously, last time out, an unbelievable one against the Leech. His striking is out of this world. He is one of the slickest, one of the most entertaining strikers in the whole of the UFC. I'm gonna go out there on a limb and say it. I think he is. He's on a 10-fight win streak. Clinical performance last time out, coming out of the fighting nerds gym. There's no better gym to be at the moment. They've got Kyber Halio, they've got Bruno Brazil, they've got Silva. They've got so many fighters coming out of this gym at the moment. And Carlos Prates is possibly one of the most exciting. This is a hard one for Magney, isn't it?
Like I said, Neil Magney, he's been there with them all. He's had the tests of every welterweight fighter ranked above him has basically fought him. He has been the number one gatekeeper in the sport. So respect to Neil Magney where it's given. But the elite prospects beat Neil Magney. Ian Gary beat Neil Magney. Shavkat Rakhmonov beat Neil Magney. Carlos Prates will smash Neil Magney, and he will get into that top 10 this weekend. I'm sure of it.
To try and give a spin on it for Neil Magney here, he does always struggle to put back-to-back wins together. He beat D-Rod, great win. Beat Big Albert Burns. He beat Phil Rowe, good win. Beat Ian Gary. He beat Mike Malott, which we mentioned in the last pod. That one broke John's heart a wee bit, I think, because Mike Malott was one of the hottest talents coming out of Canada. Great win for Neil Magney that time. Last time out, he beat Michael Morales. So going off this trend, win one, lose one, he's due a win. What do you think the route to victory here is? I think he has to try and take him down. There's no point standing trading with Prates. There's no one in that division that will be able to do that. I don't think.
No.
I think he has to try and stop him from kicking. What Prates is very good at doing is kicking, using the range, and then using the kicks to feed his way in. If Magney can close the distance, which isn't the way that he usually fights, Magney's a big long-range guy himself, but if he can try and close the distance, get inside, maybe put a bit of pressure on Prates and back him up against the cage, I think he might be able to land a takedown in there or two. But the thing is, this is 5 rounds. If this was 3 rounds, Magney has more of a chance because he can maybe keep Prates' power and sort of his power and his efficiency in his strikes at bay. But for 5 rounds, can he really do that? I don't think so.
No, I don't think for 5 rounds you're going to keep this guy off you. Carlos Prates is, like I said, if you hear what people who've trained with him say, the likes of Brendan Loughnane said, this guy is an absolute killer. Like you said, he's been coming out of Thailand. That Thai boxing style is vicious. Everything he does is vicious. He smokes cigarettes. He's just an absolute character. But the way he strikes, the way he fights, it's violence personified. He's going for the kill. Now, for Neil Magney, he might be able to, withstand that 1 round, 2 rounds. Doing that for 5 rounds, it's not going to last for Neil Magney. I agree with you. I think for Neil Magney, getting that route to victory, it's going to be slowing this fight down, making it ugly. If he's at range with Carlos Prates, that's the last place he wants to be. Game over, exactly. So I think for Prates, just keep doing what you're doing. I think he will eventually catch Neil Magney. For Magney, just try and stifle it, just really sort of slow that fight down, and then possibly sneak it on the scorecards. I tell you what, if Neil Magney goes out and finishes Carlos Prates, fair, give him a title shot because that's unbelievable. Put him in at 310 now against Shavkat.
I don't think there's actually anyone picking him for this fight, and no. Quite rightly so. He is a gatekeeper. That is what Neil Magney is. There's no ifs, buts, or maybes about it. He is a gatekeeper. The sport needs guys like Neil Magney, as you say. Yeah. He's fought nearly everyone above him. The sport needs guys like that. But for Prates, this is the test that he needs. The Leech was very... The thing that kind of worries me for Neil Magney here is the Leech is very durable. The Leech is a very hard guy to put away. Prates caught him some really clean shots in the first 2 rounds, and from memory it was round 3 he gets the finish. The Leech is backed up against the cage, and it was literally like Prates offloading on him, but he caught him some really nice shots before it. Can Neil Magney's chin withstand the same amount of damage as what the Leech stood? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't think it's like I said, the Leech's chin, like I said, you look those first 2 rounds, he was taking an absolute hammering, and he was still there in round 3. He didn't make it out of round 3. but he got to round 3. So I think, yeah, that chin of Neil Magney will definitely be tested. Now, it's Carlos Prates. I think he will crack that chin, and I don't think Neil Magney will make it to that bell at the end. I think it's going to be a finish for Carlos Prates. Again, I'm thinking probably first 3 rounds in that first 15 minutes. I think he does crack him and get him finished. Whether it's a stone cold 1-punch KO or whether it's finishing up with some ground and pound, I think Carlos Prates does crack that chin of Neil Magney and he does get it finished within those first 15 minutes. Yourself?
I think he's going to look for a highlight reel. I think it's going to be a round 3 KO. You could clearly see he was doing that against the Leech, because there was a couple of times where it could have followed in against the Leech.
Yeah.
Or he could have he lands 1 and 2 and he doesn't follow in for 3, 4, and 5 that could have maybe finished him. It was very obvious he was looking for that 1-punch KO, and it did come. It did come. But it seems like I think he'll cruise the first 2 rounds, and he knows when he's comfortable as well. He knows he can take his time then and find that one shot. But it seems like he's very keen to find that 1-punch KO or that one strike knockout. And he's definitely got the power in his hands to do it. But I can see a similar performance to the Leech here, to be honest. I think Prates' takedown defense, we might have to see a wee bit more of it than what we have in the past, because I think it's Neil Magney's only path to victory, as I said. But I'm going for a round 3 KO. Give us your specific round, ban. Let's hear it.
I'll go a little earlier. I'll go round 2. I will. I think he'll put it on him. I agree with you with what he was doing in the Leech fight. I think he was waiting and he thought, I can't get a nice viral finish here. I'll wait. And then he does step in and get it. I think he knows, like Dana says, it's holy shit moments. That's what he wants. That's what Carlos Prates wants. So he may wait. He may take his time with it. But yeah, no, I think round 2, he might just get it out. He might think, right, this is my opportunity in the rankings now. I need to just pursue a finish. As soon as I crack him, get in there. He may just wait and try and get a spinning heel kick finish. You never know. It's something like that from Carlos Prates. But yeah, no, I think round 2 I got for Prates.
The other thing is too, the UFC knows how big of a star Prates is and how big of a star he can be. You know, like I'm just looking at his past fights here, and I mentioned this at the time we done the Dricus du Plessis and Adesanya preview. He won in the Contender Series, beats Trevor Giles, beats Charles Radke, and then goes on and gets a main card opener on a pay-per-view after not even fighting on a pay-per-view prelims before. He was fighting on like the prelims and the main card of fight nights. And then he goes, they open a main card, and it was because the UFC seen something special in him, and they seen him get round 2 KOs in a row, and then a round 1 KO going into that fight with the Leech. So the UFC is very high on this guy. This guy has got a personality, as you says. He smokes the cigarettes. I remember watching the preview or the countdown for the Leech fight, and he was sitting with his mum, and he seems like a very sort of caring family man at the same time. From Brazil, typical Brazil, hard as they come. He is a tough guy, and I would not like to be on the receiving end of some of them strikes that he lands. But I'm going to go for a round 3 KO. You're a round 2. John, we did get his prediction before, and he says Carlos Prates by murder. So
yeah, round 1 then for John, I think.
We'll just put that down as our round 1 for John. Not too much else to talk about on this card. Cody Garbrandt pulling out. Jingle Force card of the year, is it? It's definitely up there.
I mean, you can look through it and there's names there, but the names don't really provide too much value. Like you said, you look at it, I believe Ricky Tercios is your co-main event. Now, that's not something I don't think anyone wants to see. The guy's fighting Bernardo Sopaj, like you said. I think he's a good Swedish talent. He is. Obviously, last time out, he got caught with a KO of the year against Vinicius. So I think he might be but he looked very good in that fight. So I think Sopaj could show up. That's possibly someone to watch. But if, like I said, we're Combat Sports UK, I'm going to look towards your UK talent. Melissa Mullins is on this card. I think she's kicking it off. She had a loss last time out, first loss of her career, so I think she'll need to bounce back. She's fighting her debut in a 6-1 Polish girl. So I think for Melissa Mullins, just get back on the horse, get back in the win column for her. And then obviously hopefully progress then kick her career on. But like I said, the rest of this card, unfortunately, like I said, Cody Garbrandt's not on it. I don't know what time the main event is, but I don't know if I'll be watching the rest of the card. It's one of those, unfortunately. You might be catching the highlights, but there will be someone who gets that bonus that isn't Carlos Prates. But yeah, I can't see too many standouts on the card. Zaleski dos Santos against Dalby would have been good. He's now fighting a 7-0 debutant. So it's one of those. Unfortunately, it's been a bit massacred by the pullouts. I think, look, you're a week before one of the biggest cards of the year. So I think, unfortunately, they've just gone, let's just get something out there. Prates and Magnet is a great main event. It's just the rest of the card is a bit weak behind it. So, yeah, I think it's a difficult watch. But, hey, look, it's the UFC. You watch this now, you get 10 KOs and 3 submissions. It'll be something like that now.
Exactly. It would be typical with all these big cards, not much knockouts, and this could be the one they perform
Exactly,
and
yeah.
they stop the myth about the gloves maybe. Just on Melissa Mullins, I actually forgot to mention her. I think last time out we seen an example of women's MMA. This happens quite often. Fighters are doing very well, running through other promotions. They come to the UFC. I know she won her debut, but sometimes the level in the UFC is not comparable to other promotions. In men's MMA, it's different. The UFC is a step up, but the step isn't as big as what it is in women's MMA. That there step from your first pro show to UFC, it's like taking 2 or 3 steps at once. So I think she was a victim of that. Hopefully this time out she can right the wrongs from the last fight. But she's still early in her career. She's 6-1. It would be good to see her getting back in the win column because we do need more female UK talent. With Molly McCann kind of leading the way for a few years there, and of course she's kind of coming towards the end of her career. So the other bit of news we're going to touch on: Belal Muhammad is out of UFC 310. We were saying he's doing well defending his title so quick. I was giving him praise. I was saying fair play to Belal Muhammad, but it just wasn't to be. His toe does look nasty. I've seen people online calling him pull out Muhammad and stuff. His toe is in a bad way. It looked really, really awful.
No, I know.
I did kind of think, because we kind of heard the rumor before. It was maybe like a week before it broke in the media, and I thought to myself, we're 6 weeks out and he's got a sore toe. How is he going to pull out because of a sore toe 6 weeks out? He's not Conor McGregor, I was thinking.
No.
So then the pictures come out of it, and I was like, holy shit, that is rough.
I know. It looked like he had 3 big toes, not 2. It was horrible. Yeah, no, it's nasty. Like I said, you hear, Belal's pulled out because of a toe, and you're thinking, come on. You look at the picture, you go, oh, right, okay. I do get that. Like I said, infection when it's in the bone, that's a rough one. That is. And then that's your toe. You can't box. You can't do it. You can't do any training at all with a toe, especially when it's that size. You know what I mean? So I think it's
exactly.
Yeah, I think for Belal, like you said, unfortunate for him. Now, I think this talk of an interim title, I think it's not needed. Like you said, from what I'm hearing, it's 6 to 10 weeks, is it? Possibly Belal's out for.
Yeah.
What's that, like 2-3 months? Do we need an interim title for it? The UFC might do, because obviously they want 2 title fights for the end of the year rather than 1. But I don't know if it's necessarily needed. I agree with what Belal was saying. Like I said, why? I'm not out for 6 months. Why do we need an interim? But again, like I said, it's keeping Shavkat on that card. And, the UFC want a picture of Shavkat with his hat on, with a belt on his waist. So I think an interim is possibly the route they're going to go down.
I think it is. And as you say, it's not necessarily needed because, Belal could fight February, March, no problem. I think it's just the fact that trying to make this card a bit more glamorous than what it is, because the interesting thing is, if they push, they have to have the flyweights now as the main event. They have to, because it's the only actual title fight. They have to have Kaya Sakura and Pantoja as the main event. So you could give Shavkat a co-main spot, but it's the rest of the card below that where it starts weakening. So I think for them, they have to bring in an interim title, because how often do you see a flyweight main event? Yes, we seen one a few weeks ago, but it was a fight night. A title shot flyweight as a main event, it doesn't tend to happen. It tends to be the co-main. So I think that's why they need this interim title. They really bulk up the card, and instead of there being a flyweight main event and then just Shavkat Rakhmonov fighting whoever he's going to fight, we'll get onto that in a minute. I think they have to have flyweight main event, title shot or title fight, and then an interim title fight as the co-main. I think that's to me, that there's the only reason they're doing it. And it does make the Belal fight more interesting then as well whenever the time does come.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's I agree with you. I think the only reason they're exploring the avenue of that interim title fight is because it's those the posters. You don't really want the poster with just flyweight title. Now the flyweight titles, if we see a flyweight title fight like we've seen with Moreno and Davison Figueiredo, that could headline every fight card of the year.
Mhm.
Like you do get amazing flyweight title fights. It's very rare you get a bad one, but they've never really headlined your numbered cards. So I see why the need is there for that welterweight interim belt. But I agree with you. Like I said, when that Bilal Muhammad full title shot comes, you got two belts on the poster now going in for unified title, and that's something that everyone likes to hear. Unified champion. So I think it's another selling point later down the line for the Bilal Muhammad fight, whoever comes out with this interim strap. So yeah, no, I agree with you. I think it's purely just a case of bulking up this card.
Who's fighting for it then? I thought it was going to be Ian Gary, to be honest. I was
I
like,
think it
Ian
should have been
Gary.
Ian Garrett. I think
Yeah,
it should have been Ian Garrett.
I think they have something. I don't know why they haven't come out with anything yet, but they must have something arranged. Or else, in my opinion, they wouldn't have made Ian Gary and Joaquin Buckley, because Ian Gary was calling for it. He was happy for the fight. And if they don't have another fight arranged, there's
Mhm.
no way they would have gave Ian Gary the fight against Buckley.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think the fact that the Buckley and Gary news came out, was it like within the week of the Bilal pulling out fight?
It was strange
Bilal
timing,
pulling
wasn't
out
it?
the fight. It was a bit of some odd timing. So to me, it's they've given that go ahead to Gary and Buckley to say, look, neither of you are getting this shot. You fight each other. Now it leaves the question of who there is. If I see Colby Covington get announced,
It can't be, mate. It can't be.
I don't
Oh,
think it will be, but it's one of those like really like it can't be Colby Covington. So yeah, no, I think Colby's
Colby,
definitely out of the picture. I know he's talking a bit now, but I think he's out of the picture.
Colby is the king of
Kamaru
getting
is your other one.
undeserved title shots, but
Yeah, no, I know with Colby now. I think, like I said, I've seen him talking a bit recently, but yeah, no, I think he's out the picture. I think he said he has spoken to the UFC. He did put his name forward. And luckily, they did just brush him off and say, "No, not again, please." Like, come on. So I think it is going to be Kamaru is the route. Like I said, he's done it before. He is reliable. Now, I think that's a bit undeserved, to be perfectly honest. Like you said, he's 0-3 in his last three fights.
yeah,
Uh,
he
but the
is. He
issue
is.
is with
But
the welterweights, there's not many options now, are there?
when you look at the 1-3, it is the head kick against Leon. Like,
Yeah,
he was winning that fight. We all know the narrative around that one was that not that it was a lucky shot, it was a perfect
no,
shot, but he was unlucky to get caught in that one. Similarly, as we were saying about Jack Short, it's one that's got an asterisk on it.
yeah,
He got dominated by Leon in the rematch. But then he came into the Chimaev one and he looked very, very good. I actually think that was a draw. I always say it. I
I
always
agree
say
with
it.
you on that. Yeah,
Yeah, I've like rewatched the fight a good few times. That fight was a draw, in my opinion. Chimaev won the first, and Usman won the last two, rounds 2 and 3. So, yes, he is a 1-3, but in the current picture that we're seeing in the welterweight division, it maybe is the best option outside of Leon Edwards. Why is Leon Edwards not calling for this fight? This is weird. This is strange,
yeah,
that because he should be the man stepping up the fight here. He got beat by Bilal Muhammad. He was
yeah,
never going to get the instant rematch because of the nature of Leon Edwards. He seems to have to
yeah,
work a bit harder to get these shots. But if he steps in there late notice, saves UFC 310
yeah.
for the company, for an interim title against Shavkat Rakhmonov, that is the best opportunity Leon Edwards has to bounce right back in and get his career back on track.
Yeah, I think there is reason he's not even been mentioned. Now, from what I'm hearing, he's injured. He's got an injury to his back, and I think he's targeting, like we've previously mentioned, that March UK card. So I think that's where he's looking for. So I think Leon injured is injured. I believe it's his back, from what I'm hearing. So that's why I don't think Leon's even had a mention. I don't think Leon's not very active on social media anyway, but that's why we've not seen
He's
anything
not.
from him. But yeah, so I think Leon's injured. I think Jack Della Maddalena, I think, is injured as well, and he's probably looking at Sydney in February. You're looking then down that you then get to Ian Gary, and then you think, well, why is Ian Gary not being given that shot? So I think it's got to be Kamaru Usman. The only other name up there and around there on some element of form is Sean Brady. Now,
Brady,
the
yeah.
UFC are not going to make. If you've got Kamaru Usman, although he's on a 3-fight skid, or Sean Brady to co-main a pay-per-view event, you're picking Kamaru Usman because this guy is a proven, I wouldn't call him a superstar, but he's a proven name. He was an absolutely unbelievable champion. So I think Kamaru Usman, Shavkat Rakhmonov, I don't know why it's not been announced yet. I think it's the only legitimate option they have got, even though I think it's a bit undeserved with the form of Usman. I think that's the avenue they've gone down, and I think it will be an excellent fight. I know that. Like I said, Usman
Do you
always
give
brings it, and
Usman much of
Shavkat
a
Rakhmonov.
chance?
I do. I think he's, like I said, he's by far the toughest test for Shavkat Rakhmonov. Do I give Kamaru Usman more of a chance than Bilal in the actual original matchup? I possibly do. If I see Kamaru Usman, who dominated the welterweight division in the last before Leon came back, then that Kamaru Usman really does cause problems for Shavkat Rakhmonov. Problems that I don't think Bilal Muhammad had in his locker to cause Shavkat. I do still think Shavkat wins because it's Shavkat. It's 80-0, 100% finish rate. This guy he's a phenom. But I definitely think Usman causes problems for him, especially if he's fit and firing. But yeah, no, I think Shavkat is still gonna really, really shine.
I would disagree with you. I think Bilal Muhammad, I hate to say it, and I think it was because I was there and I experienced.
I was there as well. I did shut my eyes for half of the performance, but yeah, it was.
I think it was because I experienced the domination firsthand.
Yeah.
I'm buzzing for Leon Edwards to come on. Paddy, you know what it was like, Anthony. It was slow enough at the start. Paddy the Baddy gets the finish. He gets the sub over Bobby Green. Tom Aspinall, quick knockout, and you're just thinking, it's all came together now. Leon Edwards is going to head kick Bilal Muhammad, or he's going to get a unanimous decision win. And Bilal Muhammad just sucked the life out of that place. Talk about a dominant performance. And if he can do that to Leon Edwards, Usman wasn't able to do that to Leon Edwards.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And yeah,
well, I suppose he was in the second fight until he got head kicked.
Yeah, well, yeah.
And the first fight too, of course, actually. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, the first and the second fight. You've got to think the second fight is altitude. So possibly that's an element to it. But no, I can see what you mean. Like I said, that performance from Muhammad is amazing. Like I said, if you're looking on recent form, Bilal Muhammad he holds the belt. He's the best welterweight in the world. So I see your point, but yeah, no, I think I'm reminiscing back to old Kamaru, who was absolutely destroying the welterweight division. I just hope we see that again, because if we do, it's going to be an excellent fight.
Even the Usman that we seen against Chimaev, he looked very, very good in that fight too. He was able to withstand the kind of pressure, because in that first round it was very reminiscent to the Whittaker Chimaev fight. But the difference was Usman was able to withstand it. He was able to get out of the round. And it was a 10-8 round, don't get me wrong, it was. And there was many a time it was close to being finished. But he had the durability to get out of there, whereas Robert Whittaker didn't. So, I don't know. It is an interesting one. It's a very, very difficult matchup for Usman, as you say. Shavkat Rakhmonov is a phenom. 18 finishes, 18 wins, 18-0, undefeated, unbeaten. He's got all the accolades so far, and he is a scary, I wouldn't even call him a prospect now, but he's a scary contender. But I'm looking forward to seeing this fight being made. I think Kamaru Usman, it is a good one. As you say, he brings that name value, but there's a few things happening here. There's a few decisions happening, and it's based on entertainment and not actual sport and meritocracy. The interim title is not needed. Looking at the sport, it's not needed, but looking at the entertainment factor, it is needed. And the same as bringing in Usman over the likes of Ian Gary or someone like this. So it will be a good fight. I'm glad I don't have to watch Bilal Muhammad again, so that's always a bonus.
Well, I think, like you said, it's that entertainment value, and obviously the good thing for the UFC is Usman hasn't fought Bilal Muhammad now. So if Usman does, upset the apple cart, that he's the first man to give Shavkat Rakhmonov that defeat. So if he does get out there, take that belt, then Usman Mohammed it will still sell. No, like I said, Shavkat is the main star they were building for. This was going to be Shavkat's crowning moment to have first Kazakh UFC champion, another absolutely dominant all-round finishing machine as a champion. But if Usman goes out, then look, he's two-time champion. So I think Usman versus Mohammed does sell. Again, whenever that comes to fruition, however long Mohammed's out, depends on his third big toe that he's got at the moment. So it's one of those things.
Hopefully they make the fight soon. I do think they will. I think they'll maybe get next week by them maybe, and they will announce that fight. That brings us to an end of this podcast. Thank you very much to anyone who is listening. As always, get Combat Sports UK on all your socials: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, and YouTube. We're everywhere. Fighter interviews coming out. They're coming out more than ever at the moment. We're doing big things, so make sure and tune in to us on all socials. Dan, thank you very much for joining us today.
Right, thank you for having me. Like I said, with Combat Sports UK, we're just getting started, so the journey's onwards and upwards. So, like I said, catch us everywhere.
Tell your friends, like and share this podcast as well, because we're getting more consistent with it. And we'll have John back with us next week as well if there's any Americans or Canadians missing a local accent.
Exactly, yeah, they are missing their hometown boys. So I'm sure he'll be here next week, and he'll be previewing his pick of Prates by murder. So I'm sure he'll be happy with that when that comes to light this weekend.
Hey, well, Dan, thanks very much again, and thank you for listening.
Thanks for having me. Cheers.
Conceive, believe, achieve.
This is former UFC middleweight champion of the world, Michael Bisping.
Paddy the Baddy here. You're listening to Combat Sports UK.
And you're watching Combat Sports UK.